Hello, everybody. So, welcome back to the channel. And we're in the dying hours of the Conservative government. So, Rishi Sunak, at his count in Richmond, North Yorkshire, he conceded. He said that Labour has won and that a new government is going to be ushered into office. So, he's presumably on his way back to London and will resign in a matter of hours. Interesting to see whether he says he's going to step down as leader of the Conservative Party as soon as a leader can be found, within a month perhaps, or stay on maybe till Christmas, which I think might be more sensible like Michael Howard did in 2005. So, how about my predictions versus the results? Well, my predictions they were obviously broadly accurate, but Labour got a lower share of the vote than anybody forecast, 35%. And I was saying 38%. The fascinating thing is that's the same share of the vote that Blair got for Labour in 2005, and they got a majority, but it wasn't a huge one like it is now. Although in terms of number of seats, Labour got 410 members of Parliament. Under Blair in '97, they got 418. Now, bear in mind, about 8 seats have yet to declare. They're normally rural seats in Northern Ireland or Scotland. So very large areas, got to bring in ballot boxes for many miles to count them. But obviously, that's not going to significantly alter the outcome. So these are seats that go to the Northern Ireland parties. There are 18 constituencies there, possibly in North Britain to Labour or the Scottish National Party. But yeah, we know the overall picture with trivial exceptions. Coming on to the Conservative and Unionist Party, 119 MPs, which is about what I said. The Liberal Democrats getting 71, which is significantly more than I forecast. So an excellent night for them, even though the vote share's gone up by 1 percentage point. Now, how come that they did so well was really because the Conservatives did very badly, but because people who'd formerly voted Conservative, they mostly voted for Reform UK. So disgruntled Conservatives there, and that was enough for the Lib Dems to squeak home, mainly in rural southern England, where they tend to be the major opposition to the Conservatives. So I said Labour 438 MPs, and Labour didn't do quite as well as that. I said Conservatives 120 MPs, which seems to be like bang on. I said Reform 3 members of Parliament, they've got 4. And then if you look at what is the percentage of the votes that Reform has got, I can't quite get it up right now. It's of that order. Okay, so the map has really changed. So Reform UK, this insurgent party, they got 14% of the vote, which is just what I said. So I should be very proud of myself about that. So I said the Liberal Democrats will get 9% of the vote, but they've done significantly better than that. They've got, is it 13% of the vote? Let me double check on the official stats. Yeah, Liberal Democrats. Oh no, they got 12% of the vote. Okay. And I gave so I predicted they would get 40 MPs. They've got 71. So that's these are the vagaries of the first past the post system. You know, you can go up in seats and down in votes and vice versa. And then in the Northern Ireland parties saying how Sinn Féin would become the largest party in Northern Ireland, and indeed that has transpired. What I didn't see coming is Sir Ian Paisley would be told by the electorate, "You're fired." He's the MP for North Antrim, a constituency that his late father, Lord Bandside, the Reverend Ian Richard Kyle Paisley, held since 1970. So 54 years, that's been a Paisley family bailiwick. But as Sir Ian is discovering, that the MP for North Antrim is not a heritable title, and the constituents have dismissed him, and they've elected Jim Allister, leader of Traditional Unionist Voice, a more hardline Unionist party, which says no power sharing with Sinn Féin, who are erstwhile advocates for terrorism. So the SNP down to only 8 seats. I didn't think they'd do that badly, actually. So yeah, they're just some seats in rural Caledonia they've held. In urban, suburban Scotland has gone back to Labour. And the SNP had an awful lot of seats, but most of them quite marginally. I was quite correct about South London, Sutton-on-Cheam going Liberal Democrat, Carshalton going Liberal Democrat, just outside South London, Esher Walton going Liberal Democrat. I also correctly called Runnymede and Weybridge being retained by the Conservative psychiatrist Ben Spencer. I was wrong in forecasting that Jeremy Hunt would be kicked out. He's held his seat. I was correct in saying that Penny Mordaunt would lose Portsmouth North. and that Liz Truss, the quantum prime minister, would be unceremoniously kicked out in Suffolk. And indeed, she has been the first former prime minister to lose a seat since H. Asquith in 1918. So a lot of big beasts. Is about a third of the cabinet have lost. About 44 Conservative ministers have lost their seats. That's including cabinet ministers and junior ministers. As I correctly predicted, Alex Chalk, he's lost his seat in Cheltenham because he won it very narrowly against the Liberal Democrats. Now, what I didn't see coming is that Wales, being, as some would say, a Tory-free zone, the Conservatives having lost all their seats in the Principality. So that happened in 1997. Conservatives got one back in 2001. Um, so Labour, I mean, they then fine in terms of seats. They got a very healthy majority, but they can't be cock a hoop. Only 35% of the vote. So their vote is soft, and a lot of people voted for the far left, the Green Party, and maybe even a few disaffected former Labour voters even voted for Reform UK, Reform, especially if they're older. So Labour cannot afford to be complacent, but all their military level of discipline, all their firmness work for them. Now, I do feel sorry for what's her name? Is it Fazia Khan, their former candidate in Chingford in North London, because she stood last time, performed creditably against Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, the former Conservative leader, and lost narrowly in a year that was actually brutal for the Labour Party, and hoped to unseat her this time. And then it was found that she'd liked one tweet, which is a tiny bit controversial, and Labour dumped her as a candidate. She's a very distinguished lady. But anyway, she said she's not having this. She stood as an independent leftist candidate. And indeed, Sir Ian Duncan-Smith retained his seat. And it's really only because of the intervention of her. If Labour kept her, they would almost certainly have booted out Ian Duncan-Smith, and that would have been quite a scalp for them. Jeremy Corbyn, as I correctly said, he stood as an independent, and indeed he was returned for his Islington North seat, which is held since 1983. So the Green Party, they got 4 members of Parliament. I thought they'd get 2. Yes, they retained Brighton, Kemp Town, and they gained Bristol Central, a couple more. Reform UK, I had them on 3 constituencies. They've actually got 4. Clacton-on-Sea has indeed returned Nigel Farage. His 8th attempt, he's finally got into the House of Commons. Ashfield, is it in Derbyshire or Nottinghamshire? I get mixed up. Anyway, so Lee Anderson, formerly Conservative MP, now Reform UK, he has held his seat under his new banner, and I can't remember where the other 2 constituencies are. So it's very, very difficult to get a foot in the door. So the big question is, do they build on that in 5 years' time, or do they go extinct as a parliamentary party? I think more likely the latter. So it's a little bit worrying for Labour because, so Keir said now they're going to deliver. Well, there are a number of headwinds against them. There are all these people going to have to be released from prison because there's not enough space. There's going to be a huge influx of illegal immigration. The NHS is not going to get better simply because Labour's in charge. Even if they're able to splurge money at it, it'll be a few years before people start to feel that. There's still the cost of living crisis. Houses can't be built in a day, whatever you do. And so on. They're not going to be able to recruit these teachers overnight, maybe never recruit the teachers they claim they can recruit. So I don't see how they're going to make life better. It's very dispiriting because some people have voted for oppression, for an increasingly racist, sexist Labour Party that's driven by spite. It's going to take away so much of our freedom. It's going to deprive people of our rights. It's going to tax us. It's going to waste the money. It's going to increase the dependency culture. A very bigoted and intolerant Labour Party is now going to reign over us. So it's very depressing and it's revolting. But sadly, a lot of people vote for this kind of cruelty. So I would like to see a kind of gentler politics, respecting people's rights, expanding freedom, and not crushing the life out of it. And we're not going to see that under Labour. So these sanctimonious, self-righteous bigots are going to lord it over us for a very long time. And they have not had a ringing endorsement from the electorate. So in 5 years' time, it was quite difficult for them. And the Liberal Democrats probably still make gains, and the Greens, people who are not sold on Labour's message. One of the few good things Labour said they're going to do is recognise Palestine. So we shall see. So Rishi Sunak says he's taken responsibility for this, and he should. It's a dreadful election campaign. Should have said that Plaid Cymru, they've doubled their number of members of Parliament from 4 to 2. Yeah, I mean, one of the few pleasing outcomes about this is the SNP. doing so badly. So that means that breaking up the United Kingdom is less likely, and probably presages the SNP losing Holyrood in 2 years' time. I know there's a Westminster election, but people usually don't compartmentalize. And we'll talk about Holyrood issues, even though Westminster has no input put on those ones. So yeah, in London, Labour did particularly well. I mean, it's always been a Labour city, but it's even more strongly. Is it 58 Labour MPs now? Nine Conservatives, six Liberal Democrats in London. So southwest London, where the Lib Dems are very strong, and then just outside southwest London, it's about, looking at Surrey, it's 8 MPs there are there, and now 4 of them are Liberal Democrats. It used to be 8 out of 8 were Conservatives. So some fascinating results. So who survived in the Conservative Party is a better question. So yeah, as I said, it has been Suella Braverman in Fareham, that's in rural Hampshire, and indeed Kemi Badenoch. So those are the two obvious candidates for the leadership. I can't think who else. I don't even know if Tom Doggenhart has survived. I would suspect he has, otherwise we probably would have found out about it. Right. So thank you so much for watching my channel. How good do you think my predictions were? So make sure you subscribe on Patreon, donate on PayPal with the greatest possible liberality to sustain this channel. Are there any observations I should make? I haven't seen the turnout actually. I'm assuming it's down slightly, about 60%, partly because the result was so decisive. Now, because Labour went up only from 32% last time to 35% this time. So that's actually not a very big increase in vote share. It's really Reform UK. They were determinative. They made an enormous difference, taking away so many votes from the Conservative Party. Now, I know some Tory speakers, though, people don't have the right to vote for Reform UK. They do. You have the right to vote for whichever party you want to. And the Conservative Party can't take people for granted. They have to earn people's votes and convince them it's worth voting for them, that they're going to get actual conservatism instead of just like the soft left. And Labour, that's probably a lesson that they should learn as well. But there's more in common between the duopoly parties than either would care to admit. So it's depressing and disgustful that people have voted for wokery. Right. Is there anything else to point out? I'm sure I had another observation in mind. Yeah, Liberal Democrats is their highest number of seats since 1924. Admittedly, they're just called Liberals in those days. So just a very good result for them. I mean, proportionally, they've gained the most. Put it this way, they've increased their vote, their number of MPs almost sevenfold since the last MP, sevenfold, the last election. Another point is they're getting, what was it, 12% of the vote. And they've almost got 12% of the seats. So the first past the post system has actually been all right to them this time. Is usually quite cruel to them. And Labour, well, why would turkeys vote for Christmas? The first past the vote system has worked for them very, very well indeed. So why on earth would they change that? Or yeah, Democratic Unionist Party, haven't looked into it too much, but yeah, they've got a few seats. Second biggest party in Northern Ireland. The Ulster Unionist Party's got at least one. The Alliance Party in Northern Ireland's got one, as I forecast. The SDLP's got 2. I thought they'd only get 1 actually. So I might go into the granularity a bit later. Remember, 35%, that's what David Cameron led the Conservatives to in 2010, and it wasn't enough to form a majority government, which is why we went to coalition with the Lib Dems. So that's the way the cookie crumbles. And so then you see that the difference between the party, the Conservatives on 24%, which is the top end of the range they're predicted to get. You always have to think Conservatives be at the top of their range, Labour at the bottom of their range, the opinion polls. There's a lot of people who are Labour inclined don't bother to vote. There's a timid Tory factor. So Labour's is actually only 11 percentage points ahead, whereas bigger under Blair in 97. Well, thank you so much for watching my channel. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon and donate on PayPal. Goodbye.